I would like to start just by, if you could introduce yourself, and then maybe provide a rose and a thorn from your experience over the past couple months doing the work. The rose being a silver lining, something unexpected, positive that's happened. And then I'm sure there's a lot more of these, but the thorns, things that have been challenging or that have been roadblocks to your work so far. So if you don't mind, I think, Tierney, if you could go ahead and kick us off, that would be fantastic.
Sure, Ben. Hi, everyone. Tierney Fairchild here. I am the Executive Director of Resilience Education. We provide business and entrepreneurship and financial literacy education programs in 3 facilities here in Virginia. We are in Buckingham, Fluvanna, and Dillwyn. We've been doing this for 9 years now, and we engage about 35 instructors from the Darden School, second-year MBA students, and we have about 200 released grads now, some that are in our community here, some of that have been served by folks like the Fountain Fund, and we're really interested in developing further partnerships and figuring out how we can support everyone, especially post-release. We do have a recent grant from the Community Foundation to focus on an employer network, and we're in conversation with some partners here, as well as Network to Work and others about how to specifically support people who are formerly incarcerated. Just in terms of something positive that's come out of this, I think one of the greatest sort of locally reported issues has been, I think we've all heard about the Fluvanna Correctional Center for Women and some of the challenges that they have. I've been incredibly impressed that they have had no cases, and they continue to have no cases, and I think that's really thankful, including for the staff. So that is something that, I was surprised to hear. The men's facility is having a greater challenge. And I would just say what's been both great and hard is trying to finish our programs, which we had to put on pause in mid-March, seeing not having our graduations. Today would have been Dillwyn's graduation, and it's always an incredible event. But we have been able to reach our students. They have actually been communicating with us, and we've been able to get them their final assignments, and our MBA students are grading them now. So I think it's a new challenge, but hopefully it'll open up some opportunities as well. Look forward to the conversation.
Harold, I think you're next up on our list.
So Harold Foley, long life Charlottesville resident. I've been working a lot of social justice issues for the last, I don't know how long, but so one of the things I think have been very successful is how the community had band together to get the people who are in the local jail out who could be out. And I commend Joe and Jim for their efforts of, pushing to get as least people, or as many people out of the jail who could be in a safe place. I think the thorn and the side has been, how do you get the rest of the folks who don't have a home plan, who can get out of the jail? That's been a really difficult thing for the People's Coalition, and it's been like I don't know if it's because people won't say it, but I don't know if it's like, oh, I don't want to deal with people who's incarcerated to be anywhere other than in jail or prison, but it's been really hard to get those folks out, and like I said, we've been fighting.
Sherry, would you like to take a minute to share a rose and a thorn?
Yes. Well, I guess I didn't know what I got into, but anyway, I'll share somewhat today. I guess one of the things is, my name's Cherry Henley. I have an organization called Lending Hands. I kind of created myself from being an ex-offender, and I just try to help people navigate through the system and also provide resources. So with COVID-19, of course, everything has switched. So I'm kind of supporting people on the inside, as I've always been doing. Families have been contacting me about family members that are on the inside. I too want to give push up to Joe and Jim for what they have did at the local jail. But we do have some pretrial people that we're working. We would like to see some changes because they haven't even been to court. But I know that's a challenge to them to how to figure that out. And I also have been doing a little work supporting the mutual aid in Charlottesville, doing some driving and stuff like that. So, and then I got the house over in that I can support for women getting out. And I guess we'll talk a little bit more about that with Joe at another time, or Harold, or whoever. But anyway, I'm going to pass so other people can get a chance.
Okay, I'm not, okay? Yep. Okay. Well, Jim Hingley, and great to see you all today. Wish we could be doing this in person, but we can't. I will start with something that's success, and Harold's already touched on it. Because of the COVID crisis, people are recognizing the urgency of dealing with the jails and reducing population of the jail to try to prevent an outbreak, fewer people in jail, fewer sources of potential infection. And if there is an outbreak, if you have fewer people in jail, you have more room for treatment and isolation and so on. So positive thing is I think this community has recognized early on the importance of focusing on reducing population at the jail as a response to the COVID crisis. That's the positive. Along with that, I have found it to be very positive that Joe and I can work together having the same philosophy of decarceration. But beyond that, that we have a lot of criminal justice partners who help with this work. So it's a broad-based community effort. It's not just the Commonwealth's attorneys. One of the key people in this has been Martin Coomer, who's the superintendent of the jail. And he's just been terrific. We also have defense lawyers and judges and other people in the system that cooperate and coordinate so that we can do the important work of reducing the population at the jail. A couple of things to think about in terms of measuring the distance that we've come. The jail population now is less than it has been in about a quarter of a century, and perhaps even longer. Martin Coomer, who's sort of the record keeper, can't remember much past 25 years ago. But I think that's a really astonishing statistic when you think about it, that just because of the COVID crisis and the concerted action the community has been taking in response to that, we were able to find a way to reduce the jail population to levels that we haven't seen in decades. Percentage-wise, it's over 30%. Now, of course, the measurement changes from day to day because there's new arrests and there's people being released. But this is, a measurement that we had at the point in time where you pick a day or two and look at averages, and that's where we were. So I think that's it's a great accomplishment, and I think this community can be happy that so many people have worked together to make that happen. Another statistic or another metric that we can look at is home electronic incarceration. And Harold was talking about that. Home electronic incarceration works for a lot of people, and sometimes it doesn't work because people don't have a home where they can go to be electronically incarcerated. But statewide, the Albemarle Charlottesville Regional Jail is at the top of the list as having the largest number of people at the jail who are serving their sentence by home electronic incarceration, HEI. And of course, that's done on a proportional basis, but it was really great to see the Albemarle Charlottesville Regional Jail topping the list. So we have accomplished a lot, and I'm speaking for myself, but I'm pretty sure Joe would agree. We haven't stopped. I know I'm still looking for opportunities. And also, by the way, home electronic incarceration has really helped get a lot of people out of the jail, but that's not the only strategy that we've been using. We've been focusing on bail decisions, not asking for cash bail, of course. That was something that we'd already been doing a lot of, and we're still doing more. But the prosecutors get called by magistrates when magistrates are not able to release somebody on bail because of the nature of the offenses charged. And I know I've been getting calls, and Joe probably has been too. After talking to the magistrate, we are able to give the magistrate the green light to release somebody who formerly they would have had to keep, at least keep until the person could appear in front of the judge. So we have focused on using more liberalized bail release decisions to keep people out of jail. We've also done other things like deferred reporting dates when somebody is sentenced, and then they have a deferred reporting date, and the deferred reporting date falls within the period of the public health emergency. We work together with the courts to give them an extended delayed reporting date. I've also helped people get furloughs who might be ineligible for home electronic incarceration, either because of their home situation or the distance they are from the jail. They're allowed to leave the jail and come back later. And these are things that are unusual because they, while the person may end up serving the entire sentence, they are given an opportunity to take time out by reporting late or by having a furlough. And the last thing that I've been working on is trying to get people who have sentences remaining to be served of a year or less, have the court take a look at them for suspension of the remaining time. So there's a lot of different strategies. I would probably say that HEI is the one that we've succeeded in getting the most people out, but I don't want to ignore the other strategies that we've been following. So those are the positives. We got a lot of people out of jail. We got a lot of people in the community cooperating and collaborating in that effort. And it's really great to see that level of community collaboration. Now, for me, another positive is that all that we've been doing is what we should have been doing before the crisis. Now, it's a shame that it took this crisis to motivate the community to get behind decarceration. But it's happened now, and when the crisis is passed, I think it's positive that we're going to work to continue doing this, continue these strategies, and continue to reduce the population at the jail, because we have lots of other alternatives and different approaches that we need to employ besides jail. And so this is educating the community that we do have those other opportunities. And I look forward, when the crisis is over, to continuing this effort at decarceration. So that's all positive. The negative you asked for, I think the negative is one negative. There's lots of them, of course, but one big one for me in terms of looking at what we're able to do for people who are in the jail or under sentence and not in the jail is we are unable to provide in-person services. And this is a big problem because so many people have the capacity to make good progress if they can get the support in the community. And right now that support is being extended only to the only remotely, and that's not the best. And for example, the drug court and the therapeutic docket. The drug court and the therapeutic docket rely on regular contact between the person who's in the therapeutic docket or in the drug court with the judge and with the treatment team and with their case manager, and they get a lot of support in that process, and that has been kind of pulled out from under them. They still have some contact, but it's remote contact. And the same is true of the services that Offender Aid and Restoration is able to provide, either in terms of their own direct supervision or in terms of referral to community services. All of that's being done remotely. Similarly, probation and parole. So a lot of these services that we have for supporting people who are under sentence have diminished. Not through anybody's fault, but they've diminished because of this crisis, and that's the thorn for me.
Thanks so much for sharing, Jim. I would just encourage everyone, if we could just, and sorry if I didn't make this more clear, Sibyl and Ben here have prepared a list of questions that I hope will inspire a lot of conversation around some of the things that you're bringing up, Jim. So if we could just take the rest of the round of introductions, just take a minute or two, and then we'll circle back and have a more open conversation.
My name is Holly Lee. I work for the City of Charlottesville Office of Economic Development. We oversee the Downtown Job Center, and so for many years we've been working with individuals who have been released from incarceration and individuals with criminal histories in order to get them training and skills and place them into jobs that pay a self-sufficient wage. More recently, we have began to have our Home to Hope program, and Whitmore Merrick, who's after me, he could go into more detail about that. But we've had, with that program, we are now serving individuals who are released recently from incarceration, but also individuals, with prior criminal convictions, helping them get peer recovery services and monetary supportive services. And so we've been doing a lot of that. Our physical location is closed, which is something that Jim had alluded to, but we are doing a lot of services remotely and have been working really hard to put a lot of things online. And we are still offering our supportive services in full swing. So for individuals who are being released on HEM, we have been able to help them identify housing and help them monetarily to get them into that housing in a quick and timely manner. And so that's definitely something that we, we're happy that we're able to do. So.
Hello, my name is Whitmore Merrick, and I work for the City of Charlottesville's Home to Hope program. And we do a lot with Home to Hope, and we've been doing a lot lately during this COVID crisis as well. I'd say the roses for me will be being in the position that I'm in, going through what I've went through in my life, and now being able to help others and changing my life. And sorry, my internet is unstable. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Yeah, and just being able to help others that I know personally and people that I don't know as well. The thorn definitely would be the housing situation in Charlottesville, which we plan to speak on next week in our event, Hope Starts Here, Breaking Barriers to Reentry, to kind of like create more allies and highlight this discussion, and also highlight others that have gotten around the barriers and broken some of the barriers too. We also feel that that's very needed. So yes, the housing situation in Charlottesville is forcing a lot of people into the county, people that have been residents of Charlottesville all their life. And when they're released, their family members may be in the county, but technically they're still Charlottesville residents, and we're not able to serve them at times because of the lack of Albemarle County funding. And so that's one of the thorns of many. And also, we've been dealing with a lot of inmates being released, and they are on home electronic monitor, or they came out of the federal, state, or state system, and they don't have identification, so they're not able to be employed. They're stuck in the house with nothing to do. That's been a major struggle as well. And that's pretty much all for now. Thank you.
Am I up, Ben?
You're up.
Yes.
Joe Platania, Charlottesville Commonwealth's attorney. Thanks to Ben and I'm not seeing her. Whoever was joining us that put it together from TomTom, and thank all the other co-panelists. The rose for me, sort of, kind of echoing what Jim said. We as prosecutors don't really deserve much of the credit for what's gone on. It's been collaboration with a number of different folks in the community: judges, clerks, defense counsel, the superintendent of the jail, local activists like Sherry, Harold, Martez, Whitmore. There's been a huge team effort to sort of get this done locally, and I'm very humbled by it and appreciative of it to be involved. So the collaboration's been wonderful. It's something we try and pride ourselves on locally, is to try and come together to solve problems. The thorn is I've really missed the personal interactions with victims, witnesses, and actually offenders. One of my favorite parts of my jobs is I started out as a public defender working for a guy named Jim Hingley in 2000 when he opened a public defender's office. And one of my favorite parts about prosecuting is when you're in court and you're interacting with an offender and recommending a consequence for the choice they made, to treat him with dignity and like a human being and encourage them and say, look, I'm rooting for you and I believe in you, and sort of seeing the effect that has on folks I really miss that. It's my favorite part of my job, and I'm not really getting it right now. So looking forward to sort of seeing people face to face a little bit more. I'm done.
Martez, Joe has dropped the mic if you're able to.
Oh, it's on me? Okay. Afternoon, everybody. My name is Martez Tolbert. I'm the client partner navigator at the Fountain Fund. For me, I will be the thorn and the rose. It's kind of like running hand in hand. Definitely the rose will be the community foundation fund that was put together by donations, philanthropy, the city, I think the county as well, putting that together so fast as a responsive, act to our community and our surrounding partners and cities. So that was definitely the thorn for me, and having everybody get on board so fast, because I do believe that was a joint effort by a lot of different agencies and partners in the community. So that was big, and it was a lot that went into that, and there was a lot of patience that had to go to keep that going. So I worked closely with individuals that was letting me know about that. So that was definitely, I would say, the rose. But the thorn for me is just that, is since COVID hits, it kind of affected everything with the Fountain Fund. So we had and Erica probably touched more about the responsive things that we help for our clients and individuals in the community. And that's one of the thorns, like I was saying, is the other agencies who's not up and running just as fast as other agencies are. And one thing about the Fountain Fund, we work closely with our partners. We wouldn't be nothing without our partners, actually. The network and the resources that I acquired since being here is vital. And a lot of those partners are still down and still trying to scramble together how they're going to reopen and bring things back into light. So it's kind of putting a hold on clients and a little bit on even our services where we have to be put on pause just so we can try to wait until everybody's catching up. So that's been kind of a, you know, a head scratcher with our clients because they're ready to go. Even during this COVID-19, it's still things that still need to be moving. I mean, people are losing their jobs. People are getting jobs. I mean, there's a lot is going on, as everybody knows. So my roles and throwing is kind of running hand in hand at this particular point. And I'm done.
Thanks. I'm Erica Vixilio. I also work at the Fountain Fund, and we provide low interest loans, financial education, and community support to formerly incarcerated people. And since opening 3 years ago, we've lent close to $500,000 to 129 individuals. And Martez said, I mean, those needs are still there, but we also, I guess my Thor, actually my kids, we go with yo's and woes. So my yo would be that I felt like our team mobilized quickly to think about what our client partners would need. And we started loan payment relief right away so that people's credit wouldn't be dinged. We report to all 3 credit bureaus and really are trying to have that benefit for our folks as well. So we had loan payment relief for people who couldn't make their payments so their credit wouldn't be impacted. We actually transitioned that recently to a 90-day deferral across the board. But then we wanted to incentivize the good habits of repayment that are underway and also continue to build people's credit. So we're matching any payments that our client partners make up to $100. And then we also, our client partners themselves have launched an emergency assistance fund and providing, they wanted to be able to ask and give money to one another in times of crisis with dignity and respect. And so they're giving out $600 grants to one another for daily expenses and unexpected expenses. So I'm really, that's definitely a celebration as how much the Fountain Fund has been able to rally behind and for its client partners, and Martez has really led the way on keeping us connected to those people. And then my woe is just that it's not enough. I mean, there's so much, so many challenges that everyone is facing, but I feel like formerly incarcerated people are going to be a few steps behind, as they always are, because of policies and practices that we've put in place that are not just and not fair. I think specifically about when everyone's going to be trying to return to work, and our population, which already has a 28% unemployment rate pre-COVID, is going to be competing with millions of other people. So I've talked to Sally Hudson about some of the promising legislation in Pennsylvania that's sealing records, and wondering how quickly we could move to something like that here in Virginia. And I'm eager to think creatively, and I know that's part of what we're doing on this call too. Where can we collaborate to make the changes that we need to see? I was on a call yesterday and we were talking about building back better, and I hope we do that as far as criminal justice is concerned.
Great. Thank you, Erica, and thank you everyone for sharing. I'm going to pass the mic off to Ben Hitchcock from Seville to kind of guide us through some questions and talking points that I hope will inspire some of the creative brainstorming that Erica referenced. Before we do that, if you don't mind, before anyone has to leave or anything, if everyone could give just a short wave so we can capture a screenshot of the folks that were here, that'd be great. So on the 1, 2, 3. Thanks for bearing with me. I appreciate it. Ben, it's all you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ben with Seville Weekly. I've spoken with some of you before, but it's great to see everybody. And I think that was super helpful, very informative, the first go through. And as we go through, talk some more, I'll just say, encourage us to kind of be specific about what it means to build back better. And I think that everyone in this Zoom chat agrees that this decarceration has been successful and is something we should have been doing and should have been pursuing. But who doesn't agree? And how can we convince those people? What can we take from this time to, as you say, improve moving out of this? So I think let's just kind of start there, talk about, plans for the future. Maybe we can just go around the rotation again. I think that would be great, and just look forward and say, how can we use this data we've accumulated in our next phase?
Do you want to go around? Do I need
Yeah.
to
Oh,
start?
sure. Yeah. Let's do that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right,
Do you
Ben.
want to call on people, or so we have the order? Or?
Yeah. Okay. Sure. That sounds good.
All right. Well, I'm happy to start, and I'm not exactly sure I've got the crux of the question, Ben, but my sense is that this has brought up some really important points, but COVID has also raised a really other significant issue, and that is the effect on the minority population. Our programs, the decarceration is really important, and I think the issues of health and housing and job attainment, they're all related. This is what we find is that a lot of our students are individuals that are incarcerated because of financial challenges. And so I think that if we can sort of knit together back a system that is supportive on all of these points and doesn't just hit one, I think a lot of what I've heard from the other introductions are the ways in which we're trying to do that. But I think we all really need to figure out the fabric of it to create the ecosystem that works together so that we're not either duplicating effort or missing partners that need to be part of these conversations. And maybe some people, maybe some services need to combine and maybe others need to go away. And we need to have that honest and hard conversation as well.
I have a thought to what Ben said. Is that all right, or are we going in a certain order?
No, go for it.
Harold, is that okay? So I think decarceration, it maybe lends itself to thinking of the situation in binary terms, which I don't think is responsible. So in our office, in the City Commonwealth Attorney's office, I have said, I took office January 1st of 2018. I have said that community safety coupled with a fair treatment of offenders should inform every single decision we make in every instance, every day with every case. And if you can use that sort of as your touchstone or your North Star, community safety coupled with fair treatment of offenders, you're hopefully going to get it right most of the time. But one of the things I would point out, Ben, when you're like, well, who disagrees with decarceration? If you have an individual that had their home broken into in the middle of the night while they and their family were asleep and they had items taken, that's a scary, traumatic event for that family, and they've been the victims of a crime. Now, maybe the offender that broke in was trying to support a drug habit and they weren't going to hurt anyone and they just needed to, take something to get money to feed their habit. And I understand the complexities of what might have driven that behavior. But when you say who disagrees, I think the way I think of it is when you're trying to figure out how to combine community safety with the fair treatment of offender, you've got to sort of look globally in sort of a macro, not micro way of who's involved in a criminal prosecution. And there's the offender, and then there's their family members and their support system, of course, what they're all going through. But then you have victims. You might have detectives or police officers that have worked on the investigation and worked on the case. You have judges that are going to have to buy into any agreement or recommendation. They feel a responsibility that might be at odds with some of what Jim and I are trying to do. Maybe probation officers that are involved in a violation hearing. So I think that as we sort of try and pick apart going forward, there's a lot of different interests that you have to factor in as a prosecutor, in my opinion, with how you combine the community safety with the fair treatment of the offender. So those are some things that we try and think about as we puzzle through some of the situations we're dealt with.
Can I jump in and follow that?
Yeah, definitely.
I appreciate what Joe said. And I think one thing is important. Joe started, as he indicated, on January 1st of 2018. So he's been the prosecutor for a little over 2 years. I started January 1st, 2020. And so Joe has the experience, as he explained, of having to deal with people who have a different viewpoint, the police. sometimes victims, sometimes judges. And he's worked through that and is still working through that. This is a process. This isn't a thing that we get to an endpoint on. But for me, I'm just starting. And what happened was I was trying to develop the approach, put into practice the principles that I articulated in the campaign. And we were making a start. And as you can well imagine, a good many of the cases that we had in January and February were cases that were already left over from the previous administration. So we were just trying to get things done rather than being in a position to work on advancing some of these principles that we intend to follow as far as decarceration is concerned. So, and then the COVID crisis hit. Now, the COVID crisis gives us the reason for doing the things that we're doing that the people who might otherwise object can accept, right? You know, I don't think this person should get out of jail, but I understand how bad it is in the jail and how important it is for the people in the jail to be, to reduce their risk of infection, and ultimately, and we all know this on this call, it's not just the people in the jail, it's the people in the community who are going to be affected if things go bad in the jail as far as the virus is concerned. So it's not always an easy sell, but it's an easier sell to be able to say, hey, this is something we just need to do because we're in the middle of a crisis and we've just got to do this. Whatever the strategy is, whatever the proposal is for decarceration. So the COVID crisis has given us that crutch, if you will. And then, you know, looking at building it back better, looking at what our obstacles are. Joe's outlined the obstacles, and I know I see them more probably than Joe, because Joe's been at it for a couple of years. The police, the victims, the courts, other people in the system aren't ready, or not as ready as we are for change. And so, as I said earlier, I think the challenge for us is to take the COVID crisis and move on beyond it by saying, when we no longer have that as the reason that people can accept, say, look what happened during the crisis, and look what we did, and look how it, as Joe uses the term, it promoted community safety and it treated people fairly. So I think going forward, what we need to have are these conversations. And I think that's a really big obligation that prosecutors have when you run up against an objection, is not to simply say, I see it differently from you, but to engage with the person who has the objection and make your argument, make your case, and see if you can't get people to change their minds rather than just power through it because you can do that as a prosecutor. So what I see in terms of building back is the opportunity to have a lot of discussion and engagement with people who may object to the approaches that we're using, and being able to draw on the experience that we're building up during the COVID crisis as one more persuasive argument for change.
So one thing for sure that does happen, people forget stuff really quick, right? And so I don't want people to forget how the COVID-19 broke down systems. I'm talking about the education system. I'm talking about the health system. I'm talking about the criminal justice system. And for those folks who haven't got their house broken into, there's a lot of people who still believe that people should be incarcerated. Even those folks who haven't had anything happen to them, is to constantly remind them how releasing folks was safe. It didn't have, you know, those folks who was released didn't go and do something criminal. here in Charlottesville. I can't speak of anywhere else, but just keep it in their forefront that what happened in COVID-19 was a Band-Aid that was put off of all unjust stuff that was happening in this world, in the United States, period. So we can't let people forget how the system can work really for, community.
Is that data being tracked, Harold or anybody? I've heard this mentioned before that like the good behavior of early released folks will inform further policy decisions on this stuff. And is that happening right now for people that are being released because of COVID-19?
Not that I know of. I don't know if Joe and Jim might know. I don't know.
Anecdotally, when you're on HEI and you have a violation, they're charging people with a new criminal offense of basically contempt of court, that you're violating the terms and conditions of HEI. I'm quite sure that Jim's going to be, we're not going to prosecute those. We're just going to dismiss them. But I don't think they're formally tracking that.
Yeah, and I think some of those, I'm not sure, Joe, you might be more on top of this than I am, but some of those are also handled administratively, so we wouldn't get to the level of prosecution. But if it comes to prosecution, that's not something to prosecute. But I think the point here is that I'm not sure, well, I'm pretty sure that nobody's really keeping track. So I think the thing that we expect to see in the community is an absence of increased crime or an absence of the impact of early release. So it's kind of like not what we see, but what we don't see. And I think we'll probably be able to argue from what we don't see is a big jump in crime, or we don't see a lot of people being victimized by those who have gotten out early. I think that's going to be kind of the evidence that we will be able to use in support of our decarceration efforts. But it's not going to be scientific, and it's not going to be tracked, at least as far as I know.
Well, I'm going to talk just for a moment.
Please.
Somebody said please. Okay. Well, for me, I want to say that the data has already been there for a long time, because in most people like myself already recognize, if you right now can release people into the community, in my opinion, I could be wrong. Now, apparently they are not that high risk. So, and some of the places that occurs is like at the jail, at the work release department. Most of these people go out anyway, every day. Or so they have to meet a certain criteria to show that they are not that high risk. And then in the pretrial detention area, most of these people that I run across have technical violations. Now, some of these people are going back to jail because, and I know that there are stipulations on your probation, and I agree with that, I guess. But some of these stipulations are like, if I didn't report to the community service board, then I go back for another 9 months or a year. Or if I fail to tell my PO that I moved from Avon to Ridge Street, that's a technical violation. So some of these can be so small that, and even if some of these people are returning back to the jail, their fear of recidivism, they're not bringing on new charges, and they could be out because they have been citizens of Charlottesville for 30 years. These people that keep going back and forth. So they don't have the means to leave, and they will show up in court. So it's a lot of things that has already proven itself, the data, that people like myself has been pushing for years. And the last thing I think about is moving forward is, well, housing is the main issue. Housing is one top issue, and we all know that in Charlottesville. But one of the things with felons is that they cannot, most apartment complexes, and I know this to be true, will not even look at people who have felony charges. So if I got a violation, I can't even get an apartment anymore. So those are some of the, that's a way to move forward. I don't know how you're gonna handle the housing issue, which has been the issue, but a lot of reentry services for those are coming out. That's another issue that's gonna have to be looked at. Because once they get out, they're gonna need a broad range of, because I do it every day. Once I'm working with one or two person, I gotta go in depth all the way. I gotta go from job, food, housing, mental illness, all of it together. But thank you for letting me share.
Can I just ask, I guess I'm probably one of the outside, just a business person trying to understand, why don't we know what the effects of an actual decarceration, like from COVID to now? Why can't we know who those people are? I'm struggling to understand what the problem with finding this 30% reduction and who they might be.
No, that's not a problem. The superintendent of the jail could share that. Someone just would have to ask for it. And he could also document the number of violations committed by those released.
Okay, so that can be tracked and that should be tracked. And that would answer one of the questions that was posed, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Although that's part of it. Not everybody who's been released has been released on an HEI. As we indicated, some people are out on pre-trial, other people are out on furloughs. There's lots of people that are out, and the only data that the jail would have, I think, on the HEI population is who they are and if they're still out on it, or if they're not because they committed a violation. But that doesn't track them in the long run in terms of what recidivism. I mean, it's not a population that's being tracked. Sometimes for studies, we'll track, like for the drug court evaluation, we actually tracked people over time to see what the recidivism rate was. But as far as I know, there's nothing like that that's set up for HEI, and certainly not anything that's set up for the other people who are out on for other reasons.
Jerry,
go ahead.
Oh no,
I was going to say, maybe Erica, you're going to say what I was. Wouldn't this be something that we could reach to, like the Equity Center at the university, or the group that you're on, Erica, to consider setting something up so that this could be tracked and in a thoughtful way? I mean, this is an academic community. I can't imagine there wouldn't be interest.
Absolutely. The Equity Atlas is doing similar mapping, and I think that could be something. I can bring that up to them. Cherry, I just wanted to mention, I thought you're exactly right about the housing, and it was one of the things that I was thinking about with the sealing of the records as well, because then that makes it landlords as well as employers not have access to, and that might remove that barrier, not take care of it, but it would be helpful. So I think that's exactly right. And I saw Whitmore's hand before. I don't know if you still had something you wanted to say.
Thank you. I just was kind of curious of the eligibility for those that are being released on the HEI. Even though I've come in contact with some, they were nonviolent. I just like to get more understanding. Are there others that are violent that are being released? Also, about the drug court, are we seeing returns from the individuals that were in those programs as well?
So one of the things that I think the reason why violent offenders is not being released is the governor signed an executive order, and he did not include violent offenders to be released. I think that's basically why that is happening. Now, as far as the other thing about drug court, I don't have any question about that. But one more thing I want to say, we have to reform. We got to reform the I'm sorry, brain freeze. We have to reform the way we do expungements. And I think right now you cannot get expungement unless you did not get charged or whatever. So I think expungements definitely have to be top of the key that could be exposed during this COVID-19.
Yeah,
Harold, I'd love to have your.
I want to just chime in. Martez Tolbert, Pearl, you hit it right. Cheryl, you hit it. Whitmore, everybody basically touched on, you know, what's going on. Jim, Joe, you mentioned things and about the public and what the judges got to do because they got to protect the community. We all know that. But we're here now. Everybody, we're here now. Hell, we're here on the Zoom talking about this now. So we're living it. We're actually in it. So let's not talk about those things. Let's talk about things that we can radically do now, institutions that we can start up now. Thanks again, Joe, for sending me that link. And what that link just basically said, we got almost $100 million coming to our state for programs. So it's basically programs over prison. So now is the time to thought-provoking, to think, to try to figure out institutions, something that we can use here in Charlottesville for all our surrounding counties in our region. Because of what we have right now is a stigma. And Joe, you know what I'm talking about. And Harold, you know what I'm talking about. And that's a stigma of lockup lane. And that's what we call individuals in this community, what we call OAR and probation, because they're on that same strip and they look identical. You go in a probation office, you see your probation, you sit there, go through the little metal detector, then you go right down the walkway into OAR, and it's kind of the same lobby. So that's kind of the same mindset, even though OAR has more resources and other things going on. But when you walk in that lobby, I mean, come on now. I mean, blindly, it's like a probation officer. It's so impersonal. So we need to work on things that we can do right now in our community that can help individuals coming home because they're getting out, they're getting released. Hell, they're already released. I already seen a couple clients come through, potential clients who's on home monitoring and ankle monitoring. And that's a great job. I take my hat off if I had a haircut, but I take my hat off to Coomer Martin over there at the jail because when I called, because I have to do a lot of verification with my clients, so I have to do a lot of checking up on them and seeing if everything is accurate. So I have to literally call the jail just so them to come visit me at my office. So I had a candid conversation with Officer Morgan at the jail. And he basically told me, and he knows me from the jail because I'm a justice served individual myself. And he was like, well, it's good that you're doing what you're doing, Martez. And so he was giving me the rundown of what's going on. And they're basically footing the bill for all of this. They're paying for all this home monitoring because before it was a nice piece of change. So I do, like I said, take my hat off to Coomer and everybody for stepping up and being responsive to the COVID-19. But let's move past that. Let's take another step further and let's talk about setting up institutions or like I think Terry said earlier, is maybe some need to go away and we need to import new ideas and new things and new strategies and come together. And because what I saw, like I mentioned earlier, with that community foundation fund, I mean, people just city, county, United Way, everybody came together as a response. Why can't we do that now? Let's do that now. That's what we're here for. Let's talk about that. Let's brainstorm ideas about that. And I can go on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And the people that know me know I can. But I step back and I actively listen to everybody, and we're talking about what could happen and what possibly could happen. But let's talk about what should happen and what things are moving forward and how we can make this happen. Partnerships, access to capital, bringing in banks, bringing in community leaders. UVA is a big part of our community. I mean, I'm pretty sure they will be there to step in and step up. And like I said, these are just ideas that I have, and I have a lot of them.
I was just at his image. If you need a cut, they're open.
I know. He contacted me. He did contact me. So.
Whitmore, do you have any sort of insights to Martez's question, working at Home to Hope, like what people who are reentering right now need the most?
Yeah, they need everything. They need clothing, they need food, hygiene, and we've been supplying them with things like that. Everybody is case by case. Everything is case by case. So it's hard to really just say whose needs are, more than any others. But the housing is the biggest struggle. And so if there was a way that we can create more places like Oxford House and Piedmont House and programs like that, which are very, very old. They're very old school. Their programs aren't really shaped for people of this generation, honestly. But it's like really our only go-to. The communication with the jail has definitely been affected during this COVID-19. So it's hard for us to connect with the people that are being released. They're just being pushed out there. And I'm having people in the community reach out to me and getting them help, but it's still hard. It's still very hard to connect with them, whether it's home electronic monitoring or them being released due to the COVID from the federal or the state. So a lack of communication on that, I guess it's just because they're pushed out so fast that they're not able to give us that information. So making sure that our information is out there is what we've been doing a lot of, social media, and getting our flyers out there and letting them know that we're ground zero. And then we work with the Fountain Fund. We work with Network to Work. We work with everybody and try to get them to where they're stable to get a loan from somewhere like the Fountain Fund. So there's a lot that I could touch on if you have any other questions that you may have from what I've said.
Can I ask a quick question as a follow-up? Whitmore, you talked about the ID cards, and it seems like getting people who are already out, and at least one of our graduates who's also a Fountain Fund client was having a hard time getting 20 hours of work a week, and now has got a full-time job, getting $15 an hour paid because he was already working and stayed working in retail during this crisis. As one of the essential places. I'm wondering whether or not, I know that it's going to be harder for people who are formerly incarcerated, but can we talk for a second about what what it could be done creatively to help people with getting ready to go to work? If ID cards is the issue that you presented earlier, I just wanted to follow up on that.
Yeah, I want to just say that before COVID, we were working with Project ID. And I believe that there were a lot of facilities that were helping inmates get IDs. I'm not sure who they are, but that is something that is major that they need to have when they're stepping out.
Hey, Whitmore, have you, we've done some work with the Community ID program that's been running once a month. Have you heard of them?
That's not Project ID?
No, it's they started doing some outreach with the kind of the undocumented migrant population, but they're on a church on East Jefferson. They do it the first of the month.
Russ Linden.
Yes, is that right, Erica? Is it the Community ID? Yeah, they're great, and they're hopefully pretty well accepted. I have one.
They are, and it has been working well, and I think especially for that community. And Russ Linden would be a person. I'll see if I can look up his contact information and put it in the chat box.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of them.
Yeah, they're great.
What exactly do they do?
I'll send you the email. I'll send you or Erica, do you want to?
If you've got it handy, I'm going to look it up right now. So it's not a government issued ID, but it counts, like it's being accepted as for employers and things like that. So it's
because they can't get driver's license.
Correct.
Immigration.
In those cases.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know what their status is in the current COVID climate, but they were definitely rolling before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the point that I was making earlier. Kind of the example was just right now. Like we didn't even know that even existed, Ben, until literally just now. I didn't either. I work closely with Project ID, with Tara over there and the wonderful ladies over there at Project ID, and I'd never even heard of that. So this is what I mean about, you know, inputting these institutions, these buildings, these. I know it was months ago. I think I was in a meeting with a lot of community leaders, and they was talking about creating a resource hub here, where all different sources and agencies can be a part of this and can know things like the community ID, can know about the Founding Fund, can know about different things, even outside of our region and our area, with our sister counties, you know. So that's something that I was bringing up earlier, is that it shouldn't be an individual come get released, have to go to Whitmore get him ready, then Whitmore refer him to somewhere else, then someone else get him ready, then they refer him to someone. It's like a lot of passing around, which has been working and has been going on. But moving forward, if it's going to be that many people getting released and the sentencing being adjusted to basically probation or programs, what's coming out, and the things that we're talking about doing later, what Joe and Jim said earlier, we're going to need something in place for these individuals, because that means it's going to be a lot of influx of releasees in our community, and all we're just going to send them is to probation, and that's another thing to talk to probation about. You know, like Cheryl talking about those little technical violations. I know I had over 6 of them, Cheryl, all small as I don't know what, and it was just because I was in another county. Another county was housing me for Charlottesville, and they had their own procedures and their own guidelines. And not even Charlottesville was like, well, we wouldn't have done that, but since they're housing you, you know, oh well. So it's a lot of upkeep that I think we need to go in the system and do, and with the work closely with probation and OAR and our partners, because these are our partners. Like I said, it's going to take the community effort into this. It's not just the Founding Fund or Home to Hold or the city or the county. It's everyone. It's all of us. Fluvanna, Buckingham, it's everybody. Even when it comes back to the full circle again to housing, even if we can remove that felony, you know, the certain individuals can't go see their mom, their dad, their cousin, their sister, because they have a felony and they can't even get into the housing or can't stay with them because of their felony. So it's just little things like that just need to get looked at and adjusted. You know, I understand that everything's not going to get eradicated. You know, I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying, you know, things need to get looked at now very, very closely during this post-COVID.
So what I think what needs to happen, and I think didn't happen, is a community mapping of all the services that is there, because it sounds like it's not uncertain what is there, right? And so right. I think people have to do, you know, their due diligence sometimes when they do things, is do a community mapping of what is there available and what services is not available for folks. Because I think it's a disservices if we don't do a community mapping.
I just sent an email to Whitmore and Martez that it'll get you might have to do some clicking and navigating, but I sent it to you guys.
I got it. Thank you.
I just put something on the chat about our state and the expungements. It's like pretty good for Virginia to start working on cleaning up the expungement process.
So Harold, this is what Sally and I had a call about, and she was going to look in to see what past legislation, what bills have been presented around this issue, and get back to me. And then I was going to look into the code, which I haven't done yet. But so and specifically for this reason. So it sounds like there's interest in this, and this might be something that we can follow up on too. There's going to be another session in August that she thinks is just primarily going to be to revisit the budget and look at things in light of the pandemic. But what I was saying to her was, it seems like this would be appropriate as legislation at that time, because while you know, there are many more challenges that incarcerated people are going to be facing with employment and housing that are COVID related. So she was open to that. And so we're going to be looking into that, and I would love to have your help.
I just wanted to add 2 things regarding employment and housing. So the first one, employment. We're currently in the process of developing workforce development training programs that are specifically targeted towards individuals who are being released from incarceration due to COVID-19, that are focusing on industries that have had to change their business models to pivot, which has in turn created job opportunities. We're also working with the employers who are going to hire these individuals, and we will be offering them, if they're city employers, wage subsidies to take on these individuals, and then further funds for training once the individual is in the job. The second piece is housing. And Whitmore, I haven't even had a chance to tell you this because it's so new, but the mayor contacted me regarding the city's housing fund, and we're going to the hack on Tuesday to try to allocate a portion of the housing fund specifically for reentry population who are being released. And it can be used,
Wow.
So it can be used for, first month's rent deposit. It can also be used for
Wow.
motels so that we can so if we're having trouble finding, housing quickly enough, we've done this with some people who have lost housing from COVID-19 to place them until we can get a space for them. But this would be an opportunity that we've recognized that we're having trouble finding, people can't pay for the housing, so the fund will allow that. But also we will be doing significant outreach to property owners and also targeting individuals who typically would not have rented to this population because they have their units dedicated for student housing. And we're not exactly sure what's going to happen with UV in the fall, but we do have a feeling that classes some of them might be more online. And so this will open up some housing that hasn't been available in the past, and therefore allow us to make some inroads with property owners that we haven't had those possibilities in the past. So that's just a couple things we're doing on those 2 fronts.
Holly, that's really exciting. On the housing, is that just going to be available to city residents only?
City residents only, yeah. So let's hope that anybody being released, we can find them a spot in the city. So
why wouldn't it? Isn't there any way that we could push the county to put in some funding for it?
Great question.
Sure about that. We could try to talk to someone there. They have more recently been giving us funds to do workforce training for them because they don't have dedicated workforce development staff or the capacity to do it. So they do pay us to do workforce training for county residents. So I don't know if they'd be interested in partnering with us even further on this housing initiative, but we can talk to them.
Yeah, I was just thinking about like community people, like the People's Coalition, because we fight like hell to get a lot of things done, and we definitely would, if we need to, because we fight for criminal justice issues, the People's Coalition, and one of the issues could be housing that we fight for the county, because I hate to say it, but the county haven't been a good partner when it comes to criminal justice issues. I thank God that Jim's there now, but in terms of what's been going on through the history, the county always be like send them to Charlottesville. So that's what we are.
I didn't say lock them up.
You off mute, Cherry.
Oh.
No, she right though.
We need to continue this conversation next week, Wednesday at 5:30 to 7 p.m. This is definitely going to be one of our hot topics.
Hey, Harold, can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
So what I just brought up about the housing, since you guys fight, I didn't know that's all what you do. Definitely didn't know that. Now I know. You think that could be one of the things you guys can do as a hot topic is try to remove that felony barrier from housing?
Well, so a lawyer named Pat out of legal aid has been fighting for years for that, man. It's been really difficult.
I know.
Because, like I said, people have this assumption that everyone who's a criminal is a violent criminal, right? And so, like I said, Pat LaVelle has been working in the last, I mean, I don't know how long, to try to make something happen. But when I was talking about, I wasn't talking about legal aid itself. I was talking about the People's Coalition working on issues. But you know, legal aid does work on housing issues, but I'm talking about the coalition that I represent also. So I kind of wear two hats.
Well, who
Martez,
would that fight go to? The city? Because I'm confused. Because who makes the decision that is that state that ex-offenders can't get housing? Who? I don't know who.
Well, landlords have policies. A lot of people just have the policies, like you mentioned. So, but there would be, if someone's record is sealed, then when they went to look, they wouldn't see it. So if we could increase, and what Harold was saying is that our rules around that right now are very limited. It's ridiculous things, like you have to have not done the crime. Someone has to have used your name and it wasn't actually you. I mean, just very limited. And so there are places, and Pennsylvania is the one that stands out to me, where they've just really expanded what can be included. And so it removes some of those barriers, so that if landlords do say that they wouldn't, when they did that record check, they wouldn't find it.
Can I make a quick point? Martez, were you about to say something?
No, I'm listening to you, Joe.
I'll be quick. So here's one of the problems. I think in the city and now in the county, in our office, if you're charged with a felony and you don't have a prior felony, you need supervisor approval to have the case proceed as a felony. So we have a policy of diversion of all first-time felonies to misdemeanors absent supervisor approval. And I think Jim's doing the same in the county. Here's the problem. If you had a possession of cocaine from 25 years ago in Virginia, it's not sealing a record, it's with you for the rest of your life.
Yes.
And there's nothing you can do about it. I'd encourage you to look at North Carolina. There's some states that after 10 years, it just drops off. No one has to do anything. Like when you finish probation, it's just gone. You're not sealing anything. You're not expunging anything. And guess how many people I want to know about what they did 25 years ago?
Right.
Zero.
And you're absolutely right, Joe. North Carolina is one of those radical states. I travel there a lot, and I mean, the way they system set up is, and if you look comparatively to the neighbor state, which is us, it's completely different, completely on all accounts. Once you do your time and you do the crime, you do the time. That's how North Carolina looks at it.
And there's not even a legal mechanism in the Commonwealth of Virginia. If a prosecutor, a judge, and everyone wanted to expunge it, there's not even a mechanism where if everyone's in agreement, you can do that. It doesn't exist. It's on your record for the rest of your life, including misdemeanors.
Yep.
So Joe, I hear that you would be a champion for this. If Sally's going to take it up, will you?
Absolutely. I've already emailed about it. And why don't you put this on the list? If you're walking down the street with a half a gram of cocaine in your pocket and you're convicted, you can't drive for 12 months. Having nothing to do with the car, the crime has nothing to do with driving. Any felony drug offense, your license is administratively suspended, no discretion anywhere, and you can't drive. And Sally knows how to get in touch with me and with Jim.
And just to chime in, certainly that's something I would support. And there's an organization in Virginia called Justice Forward Virginia. And if you're interested, I don't have the website at the tip of my tongue, but Justice Forward Virginia will get you to their website. They have a progressive criminal justice agenda, and expungement is one of their issues. And I actually talked to Sally about that before the legislative session. So yes, I'm on board with that.
She didn't want to make the entire General Assembly mad the first session. I think she wanted
I don't say that to fault her at all, but I gave her, she wanted to know what some big issues were, and I just gave her a plateful, and she did a lot of good work, and there's a lot left to do in the coming.
So Montez, and there is coalitions like Justice Forward. Jim is right. So I'm part of Justice Forward. My organization, my Civil Rights and Restoration Program is part of that. And they do amazing work. Matter of fact, Trey and I, 2 years ago, went down to the General Assembly lobbying for pretrial, to end pretrial bonds and everything, detention. So, Justice, I think one of the things too you might want to look into is what coalitions are working on issues that could be housing, expungement, and how to change the criminal justice system.
Hey, Ben, are you getting all your questions answered?
Yeah, this has been great. You guys have hit everything, and I'll try to get all of you into the write up, but I'll do the best I can for next week.
That's kind of it. Harold, you just tapped on it, buddy. Like, it's people that's already doing this work. It's people that's already out there, that's already collecting data, that's already been putting in these works, that's been championed for these policies to change. So it's already set in place that I didn't even know about. So thanks for bringing that up. So that's something that we need to take a note of.
Yeah, thank you. I'm definitely writing down all those names as well, and looking forward to researching how far they've came about and where we have to go from there as well.
Mm-hmm.
So if y'all ever want to sit down and have a powwow, Montez know how to get in contact with me. I'm a type that I was incarcerated myself, so I'm always looking for ways to help people who've been incarcerated. I get a joy in helping people move the issue. So if you ever want to sit down and have a conversation about ins and outs of things, don't hesitate, give me a call.
Will do. Likewise.
Yep,
Ben,
yep, me too.
Ben, the four people that you happen to have on the call in Whitmore, Cherry, Martez, and Harold are probably the four most well, there are others, Eddie Harris, there are other people. I don't want to diss people, but you've got four of the most trusted mentor, role model type people to formerly incarcerated folks in our community. So congratulations on getting this group together, Ben and Rachel, and Ben, I hope that I hope you have a chance to talk to each of them more.
Yeah, thank you everyone for being here. Super honored. I'd love for this to be the beginning, not the end. As Erica was alluding to, you know, I know our organization has made criminal justice efforts a huge priority in the past year, and we'd love to continue to do so. So please reach out however we can support. Be great.